Uh,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Practical AI for MSPs. So today I'm super stoked. I've got an awesome lineup of guests. Yes, one whole guest today. And we're going to be talking about a lot of great stuff, everything from how to change FUD into FOMO. We're going to talk a little bit about super agency. We're going to give you some real world examples and even start talking about some state of the industry reports. So I'm super excited for everybody to join us today. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Will Dowling. I'm product marketing manager here at ConnectWise and the host of this show. And I have my awesome guest with me today. So John, why don't you introduce yourself for the 6 people that may not know who you are?
Hi there, 6 people. No, my name is John Harden. I'm excited to be here. I am currently the director of strategy and technology evangelism. We tried to see how long we could get the title over here at Auvik. And I do everything here at the org from AI to strategic partnerships and alliances and all the fun stuff that makes this community awesome. Been in the MSP industry for 16 years and been at SaaS half of it and the MSP side the other half of it.
I love it, man. Love it. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. So, if you have not seen John and I on a show before, Friday Field Report a few weeks ago, we got to hang out and really talk about some cool stuff. Go watch it. Today, John and I decided we wanted to have some fun talking about, well, guess what? AI for the MSP space. So, John, I want you to kind of kick it off for us here. I know we want to talk about, there's a lot of FUD out there right now, right? And, how do we take that FUD? How do we harness that and start to turn that into FOMO? Because let's face it, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people going, well, I don't know about this AI thing. It sounds scary. It sounds big. But how do we turn that from that to, hey, here's how we can help you start to enable AI within your business, right?
Yeah. So I think we have to remember that sometimes we ourselves are in a little bit of a different chamber, right? Because when I was out last week at GTIA's Community Council Forums, you couldn't get through a conversation without talking about AI. Everybody's talking about it, and we don't have the FUD.
Yeah.
But the data out there shows that MSPs have a ton of, I would call it more FOMO on where they're going with revenue streams on the AI side. And the FUD more lies with the, how am I going to do this? How am I going to monetize it? How am I even going to take this thing to market? I'm just learning it. And so I know Jessica's going to pop up the screen here. There's a great data point. Whether we as the industry feel that FUD or not, Forbes put out an article that 52% of employees fear AI at work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get it. There is a lot of fear, right? There will be something I show here a little bit later, but I took an old 1985 New York clip from robotics when the robotics took over and did a huge change in our country here on the industrial line. And it talked about the blue collar blues as the fear of job replacement.
Yeah.
And I have been calling the fear with AI the white collar woes. I think that this is one of the first times it's hit our industry as white collar workers in the industry, and I think that that's why it's hitting a little bit differently.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100% agree with you, man. It's it's one of those things where you think about any major advancement in really any industry and how it changes that industry. I mean, we're talking everything from accountants being afraid of computers and tax software to people being afraid of the printing press back in the day. It's just that natural evolution. We've got to learn to really embrace it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about that. I use that example all the time. So here at Auvik, I'm in charge of AI transformation across the organization, which is really fun. I spent 8 years or so of my career just 100% being a software engineer. And so it's fun that I get to sit with our engineers and get to use tools like Cursor, and I try out my own tools like Lovable and some of these other really cool AI software engineering tools. And then I sit down with our head of training, who has never put a line into ChatGPT or another AI tool. And it's so fun to be across that whole dichotomy. And what I think is interesting about it is that there's so many people on so many spectrums. To shift it from fear to FOMO, it's not like a one swipe ball approach, right? Like everybody's at different stages. And I've yet to nail it down because, marketers and salespeople have been adopting AI for a long time. Engineers, you would think super ahead of the curve, tend to be, a little bit more resistant to it. But I have a theory that we'll chat in here on a little bit later too, Will, on
I'm excited.
On the adopters. And it has nothing to do with departments. It has nothing to do with like what you would think. But, you talked about like the accountants and being fearful of spreadsheets. I say architects when they were fearful of AutoCAD, like
right,
was fearful when these new technologies came in that fundamentally these are going to displace the jobs and these are going to replace workers. And I'll be honest, like I don't think in general media has done a really good job of covering it because the articles you read are all about employee replacement. I get that. It's going to replace employees, but none of the articles talk about all the new roles being created, or none of the articles talk about the shift in the landscape of how businesses operate with AI. And so, not that I'm going to go down like this huge rabbit hole here, but I think a lot of the FUD comes from the fact that everybody's reading that they're being replaced. Yeah. And I think if there's a tactical takeaway in the first 7 minutes here, addressing the company, and we did this last week, and saying, we're here to help everybody augment their careers with AI. We're not looking to take AI and take it as a bash hammer across our employee base. Like, get in front of that, because that's definitely what people are thinking, whether they want to say it out loud or not.
Yeah, 100% agreed with you there. And it's, again, it's that, hey, this is not a replacement, it's an augmentation. And getting that mindset changed within your org is really important. Getting that mindset changed within your customers is also really important because, if they're coming into this looking at going, hey, how can I get rid of half of my staff? They're looking at it wrong. Yeah. And setting that expectation first and foremost as you're, if you're the MSP and you're kind of that digital guide for your customers into the technology world and into driving adoption of things like AI, because they're going to come to you for that guidance. They're not just going to go, hey, cool, I'm going to turn this thing on. I mean, some of them will, and then they're going to come to you, and it's your job to go, why did you do that? Let's get you on the right path.
Yeah.
But really just setting that out and going, hey, here's what it is. It is an augmentation. It's not a replacement. And here's how we can get you on that path is super important, right?
Yeah. And I think in my case, like, again, everybody works and learns a little bit differently, of course. In my case, I'm a big fan of the numbers, right? Like, 3 times more employees are using Gen AI for their work than leaders imagine. 70% of employees believe that in 2 years, Gen AI will change more than 30% of their work. This is data that's done by the Kinsey group, and this was data that was studied from the book, The Super Agency, which we'll get into. It has pros and cons along the way.
I love it.
But 92% of companies plan to invest in AI in the next 3 years, and only 1% believe that their investments have reached maturity. So when we talk about MSPs and servicing clients, this is just such a monster opportunity.
That's huge.
That FUD has to be put aside. And I agree, right? I think one of the cheap things to get in front of the clients with is help them understand that this isn't a hammer to displace a ton of employees. It's a way to make your business more efficient. And maybe you can grow and scale and become bigger as a result with the same amount of employees. I think that's inevitable.
Absolutely.
But looking at it from the slash and burn approach, I think is kind of the wrong way. That's personal take. Nothing outside of that. Though I think things like this really start to help when you get into the data. And one thing they did here, I hope this is sharing. It's not like the best quality visualization here, but it broke down people into 4 different categories. There's the doomer, the gloomer, the bloomer, and the zoomer.
I love that.
And I'm going to describe them. And I'm curious, Will, I want your take back here in a minute. Which one do you fall into? So,
all right, let's hear it.
So doomers are people that, Gen AI will not align with their human values regardless. They believe that there's no way in which AI can be leveraged for the greater good. And that is their take regardless of deployment. Gloomers, above all else, Gen AI needs to be closely monitored and controlled. tend to be a little bit more in the lenient side. Like they see the benefits. They expect workflows to change a little bit more than their counterparts. They plan to use AI in their personal life. That's this third data point down here. And they think it'll have a net benefit overall in the next 5 years. Then bloomers, they need to, Gen AI needs to be developed iteratively and diverse range of inputs. And then you have your zoomers. Gen AI development should be trusted to developers to maximize speed. It's on the full tilt. I'll talk about a super agency here in a moment, but it's the full tilt. Everybody gets AI. Everybody has autonomy to roll with AI. Everybody should use it, and there should be nobody left behind. Where are you, Will? What's your take on that? Like, where do you fall in?
Honestly, I'm somewhere between bloomer and zoomer, man. AI is something that, look, I've been hosting a show on it for about a year now. So clearly I might like it a little bit. But like I use it in my daily life, man. I'm sitting here and right now I'm building a chat bot for our marketing team to be able to take stuff like our messaging and positioning, all of our important documents that we've got, and really democratize access to it. So, there's so much opportunity when it comes to that world to be able to even just take it and make it easier for your team to find the information you need to, because let's face it, no one likes to spend half an hour in SharePoint looking for documentation.
Yeah. The ability to take unstructured data and structure it is really the key magic behind AI. I love that you're starting to share use cases, because I know that's where we're heading here in a little bit. And that's going to be the exciting, juicy part of this track. But I think before you go into the real use case, you go to your customers, you have to know who they are.
Yeah, 100%.
So if they're like, if you would have said Doomer, I would have probably jumped off this call, just like, all right, Will's lying at this point. We're done. Like, we're not even going to go any further. But anyway, like knowing your customers, know that of that data, I'm not going to pull it back up here because I don't think it needs pulled back up. Of that data, there's only 4% of people that are the doomer state.
Yeah.
Like, fairly firmly believe that nothing will, be of progress. 37% on that gloomer side, again, closely controlled, closely monitored. 39% on the bloomer and only 20% in the zoomer. I find myself in that bloomer to zoomer category, probably like, I don't know. I'm a little bit more radical on the right of the like zoomer side. Like, let's just let it all loose. But I know that's not the right way. So that's why I pull myself back to a bloomer.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun to say it a lot, isn't it? Like to be a doomer, a bloomer, a zoomer. Like we need a little, we need somebody in the background there to put on like a song for us to go with this.
We should get AI to write us a song about that. That's what we should do.
By the end of the show, that might be complete. We'll see what we get spun up.
Love it. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because that whole, doomer to zoomer categorization, you think about that in terms of like each one of the, major industrial revolutions, right? We had a term for those doomers, 100 so years ago during one of the industrial revolutions. They called them Luddites. Don't like that technology. And it's one of those things where you see it every time. But let's kind of talk a little bit about taking that doomer. How do you take them from doomer to zoomer, man?
Yeah, I think what that boils down to is, I said one tip already, if you're not walking away with it, like address your company and how you're going to approach it, because in the lack of information, everybody always assumes the worst.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just universal. If you've worked anywhere, that's the case in lack of information. Provide some data to back it up. But how do you make that transformation? I think like getting into a bit of this discussion here, we can talk about in the hype versus reality side of things, where, me and you, we're on the hype side, right? But the reality is, when we're talking about jumping from a bloomer to I'm getting it all messed up, a gloomer to a bloomer, the second category to the third category, you have to dispel the hype and talk about a bit of the reality here. And so throw up those slides, you could like talk about the fact that, if you're on LinkedIn, and you probably see me talking about this all the time too. I'm the hype guy. I get it. But like the hype is that AI will replace entire jobs. The reality is it's going to augment jobs. AI can make every decision for us. Well, it's good human oversight. Like break these into real, just tactical presentations and learnings. And I actually just got out from lunch. We were behind the scenes. You saw me driving here, and Jessica's like, get off the phone and just like meet us at the office. And I just got done with this client, and they're a managed service provider. They provide services to probably thousands of clients. They're a massive MSP. and they're looking how they're going to leverage Gen AI and deliver it to their customers. And one of the things that they're focusing on right now is in their QBR journey is just talking about AI readiness and talking about where they're at and talking about AI readiness assessments. And that's going to help them really start to educate their customer. And I think if you're not in your QBR interjecting the question, like, where are you on the AI journey and how ready are you? That's your second takeaway from today's call. Because you need to add that in the track because customers are already looking at it. It's just a matter of if you're addressing it.
100% agreed with you there. I mean, and it's, we've talked about this a couple of times on this show. It all starts with data, man. Like I see in the reality, you've got to have human oversight and you've got to have good data. If your data is garbage, guess what? Your AI usage is going to be garbage.
Yeah.
Just like even that base data of going, hey, how does your data look like? What does all this look like in those QBRs? And just start having that conversation. It's super important. And, I agree with your hype versus reality slide here. It's not, hey, everyone should deploy AI right now. It's you do it where it adds value. And value is really what you have to help your customers determine is where is the value for them when it comes to AI, right?
Yeah, and that's the chief thing, right? I wish I had a slide for it because I really come down to this discovery. I talked, rolling across the organization, you run into folks who think that if we have AI, all right, maybe it can do this. And it's like, whoa, we got to step way back because that sounds great, but is incredibly complex to achieve.
Yep.
And what we want to look for are those low-hanging fruit opportunities. And that's where I think starting with the client really gets into is like, where are the low-hanging fruit opportunities in the organization? And I like that either way. We just need to cut through the noise. Like that's one of the chief things is cut through the noise and get to what I say really is just the opportunities. I like the slide. I stole it. I don't think I gave it credit, but it's like I didn't plan to throw it out here, but this is good. Like focus on the opportunities. If you're on this webinar right now, like screen cap this or download or look at it. Like who are you talking to and how are you finding opportunities and inject this into your QBR. And what's at the top right there? Well, we didn't plan this, but what's at the top right of IT? I mean, I could read it if you're looking. Data management.
Data management. There we go. My eyes. It's hard to see text.
We need AI to help us out here a little bit.
Right.
But on the IT side, if you're just looking for like key areas, data management, software management, device management, IT ops, network ops, info security, and change management, like those are some easy, low-hanging areas. Now, easy's in the eye of the beholder, but are some really low-hanging fruit opportunities. But I challenge that MSPs shouldn't be talking about the IT when they're talking about AI. They should be talking about all this swath of stuff because that's where the real opportunity comes in.
Yeah, screenshot this if you're on the show or if you're watching the show. Screenshot this slide because this is a great way for you to start those conversations with your customers and say, hey, is your finance team are they doing tax and treasury? Are they doing planning and analysis? Blah blah blah. Use these items to start those conversations with your customers and with their teams. Instead of just going, hey, you use an AI? No, use it from a just that tactical perspective and start talking about those specific points. But also make sure that you've educated yourself on how the best way to leverage AI for those different items are. As MSPs, you are the digital Sherpas for your customers. And so being able to know like, hey, if they're doing like marketing, content creation, that's a great one. If you're not a strong marketer, you can use AI to start leveraging those tools to help you create content, especially if you're not great at doing it. These are just some areas where you can start letting your customers, play around, start dipping their toes in, start really understanding what AI is and isn't. And, that's where you have every bit of opportunity, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like not everybody's going to jump in their exact line of business and get it. And that was one of the failures I made initially because I'm over here on the Zoomer side. I'm like, oh, everybody gets it. Everybody's using AI. But then I meet with somebody who's like, I tried it once, never got the value out of it, and I'm out. And I actually appreciate that person more than the other teams I've worked with because they've helped me realize like we got a spectrum to work with here, which is of course the case.
Absolutely.
But if you're an MSP, take that as like a knowledge point right there. You're going to walk into a spectrum. Don't walk in with the assumption that they know what AI is, that they know where they've read the articles, but like help them, again, educate. I think we've been saying this for 10 years on every topic, but you're there to guide them through the experience, to be the Sherpa. And I was on a webinar maybe a month or so ago with Wes Spencer, where he brought up the point. He goes, it's like the blind leading the blind. Like, this has always been our job as MSPs, is only being like one step ahead and pulling them forward.
Yeah.
And remember that, like, think about where you were a year ago on AI and probably come at it from that approach, not where you are now, but where you are from a year ago, and assume that that's where you're talking to. Because if you just come in and say, hey, we're going to bash AI everywhere across your organization, I've got these 15 different automations, you might actually do the inverse of moving them from Bloomer to Zoomer. I can't keep them all straight. Down to, like, you might move them into Zoomer. You might actually have the opposite effect by overwhelming them, because a lot of people are overwhelmed by this topic.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, like, we've talked about this in this show, like, in the year that we've been doing, our AI series, man, like, AI has changed so much that we were having trouble keeping up with what was the newest, best stuff. And it was almost a full-time job for us just to be like, hey, what are we talking about in this next episode? Because there's been 9,000 new developments. And that's where it's very important in your organization as MSPs to have someone who really owns AI and just that AI knowledge for your company. Like, you want to encourage this, because that person, if they're dedicating a part of their job to just trying to keep up to speed with stuff, it's going to be really important to have that person and use them as that subject matter expert, because not everyone in your company is going to have the bandwidth to become an expert when it comes to AI.
Yeah. And that's where I think I've got a slide I'm going to throw up here for us, because that's what I do, right? Like, we're fortunate to have that person that gets to have a full-time job and doing the AI transformation. But let's see, is it sharing appropriately? We'll throw it up there. I see a white screen, but it might share right. Oh, we're let down here. StreamYard. I'll get it pulled up. But it talks about being pragmatic and not just enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that I have really identified a lot with our team, especially for some of those that are a little bit less Zoomer-esque than us, maybe, is giving them a framework to work with.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's where I think, if you're going in your QBR, another takeaway, right? All right, so now you've added it in your into your QBR. Oh, there we go. We got a slideshow mode. We can pull it up. Another takeaway is, okay, if you're going to that QBR and you're having that conversation, not what do you use, but here's some examples of what you can use. And now you can take it down to this. Now, this is from our internal slide, so it does say keeping Vicky in the loop. You should probably keep your client in the loop and not Avik. But I would just say, in general, you can apply this the same. Focusing on the AI with the measurable impacts, no brainer. This was a great reminder. Again, like, it's so simple. I was talking with a data scientist here locally in Indiana, and he's like, we all know this one little dirty trick that's going to work for AI testing. It's called the scientific method. With purpose. What do you think the outcome's going to be? Measure the outcome. I'm like, I feel like an elementary kid, but I'm like, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's a really good point.
Yeah, great point.
And then sharing with the team, with the company, don't share with us. We don't need all of this information. And then educate and empower, and AI adoption will succeed with everyone that can understand. So educating not only the table stakeholder at your end client, but maybe offering like webinars for your entire customer base, where they can have their attendees come in and learn how to use like Copilot safely or things like that. And so let's take a quick break here. I know we got a few more slides, but there's some questions in chat. Maybe we'd help out.
Yeah, I noticed that. I wanted to call out one that Henry Tim had mentioned about educating on potential risks as well. Opens great conversations around understanding their data and data mapping. Like, that's a great call out, Henry, and completely accurate, especially with that whole educating side of things. You got to make sure that you're talking about those risks as well. So good call out there.
And there is, and I think bring some quantified data, like bring some stories. One thing that I always find impactful is stories of businesses in that industry. Like, if you're talking to a bank, share a story of how a bank was taken. If you're talking to somebody in the tech industry, bring up Samsung, like those things. So sorry, go ahead. Ask this great question here.
I love it. So, all right. So looks like Nampali has a question asking, hey, how powerful is augmented reality combined with AI?
Oh my gosh. I haven't been to the metaverse yet with AI. I am scared. How powerful? I'll be honest, like as a technologist, I can theorize here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a conversation we were having internally here at Authic the other day, actually. How about that? We were talking about the future of work. And, we're talking everything from should we have AI as a minimum skill set for hires? We're talking all the way to the far end of, will we be in the metaverse with AR and talking? And we went down this track. This is me being a Zoomer. I'm like, what about digital twins? And I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but like an AI version of you that's interacting with other folks. And somebody looked at me and just kind of was like, stop being like this. That's far too far. And I said, well, if I'd have told you 5-10 years ago that the whole world would be working from home, you'd have also said that was far too far.
Yep.
And so while I can't hypothesize on how powerful augmented reality and AI is, just because I can only hypothesize, I can assume that it will set us up for a wildly different work environment, where maybe in the future, everybody's got their headset on and we're standing in a crowd right now having this conversation instead of virtually on Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be really interesting to see, because you think about how much AI has changed in the last 2 years, right? Those leaps and bounds have been exponential every time there's been an advancement. And so I think there really is a lot of opportunity, especially when it comes to things like augmented reality and AI. There's great opportunities for AI in a lot of different places. I mean, you even think about it from a training world, a teaching world, even, things like a gaming world where it's, you're starting to use AI to fill in the gaps, to augment things, to do trainings. That's where you can really start to look at it and think forward thinking, as opposed to looking at what's going on now. Look at what you think might happen in a year, and you'll probably figure out what's going to happen in 3 months.
There's a great quote to that. Most people overestimate the long-term, most people underestimate the near-term impact and overestimate the long-term impact or the short-term impact. And it's a great way. The reality is most people get on that hype train and they get really ingrained. I have a little hack here. I'm going to walk us through it here on how to find real opportunities. And I mentioned earlier, I think I found one data point on how to figure out the Zoomers from the Gloomers, from the Doomers, from the Bloomers. I'm going to see how many times I can say it. But this is a great quote. There is no doubt that creativity is the most important human resource of all. Without creativity, there would be no progress, and we would be forever repeating the same patterns.
Yep.
And I'm a corporate thief. A lot of what I've shared here is just other brilliant people. So I could do a major shout out at the end to everybody if we want. But this one was from my mentor who used to run and operate a fairly large MSP. I made the graphic, but he made the chart. He said, I look at AI and the people that adopt it on an XY chart. Humans, regardless of skill set, are all creative. I believe I've ran into somebody that is not creative. Now, creativity and other things maybe, but everybody's fairly creative fundamentally.
Absolutely.
And then I think when we look at AI, very low creativity, but extraordinarily high on the capability and capacity line. Now, I hinted earlier that I would give you some hacks onto finding out their Doomer, Gloomer, and Zoomer. As I have gone across every department, I've met with finance who didn't think that they could ever use AI in the near term, and we walked away 20 minutes later with a use case that we actually implemented, by the way. Not 20 minutes later that we talked about it. So one of the things I've been doing at the organization is meeting with leaders, and I set down a 30-minute session, and we build a GPT live with them to solve a problem they've got. And we're at about a 60% success rate in 30 minutes of automating a small little part of their day-to-day.
Love it. That's amazing.
The people I have found, though, that tend to be resistant to it are the people that really pride themselves on capability and capacity. And I don't mean that in a bad way. 5 years ago, I was a software engineer, and I really, really prided myself on the architecture of my code. And I pride myself on how much code I could produce and how many features I could output and how fast I could deliver a sprint. And I think I would see AI as a threat today if I was still in that software engineering role. And as a finance person, pride themselves on preparing all the finance, pride themselves on delivering on the deadlines. Meanwhile, when you look at the marketing teams who just love and hug AI, and you look at the highly creatives like the UX designers, and you look at the salespeople, and you look at the highly creative types in their roles, you see them really embracing AI because they can match that capacity with their creativity. And that's where I think the magic starts to hit in, is when you can take everybody to the top right. But I have found that people that pride themselves on capacity tend to be lower on the spectrum of doomer, zoomer, gloomer, boomer, bloomer, far different. And then on the far right spectrum tend to be the ones that are in that creative cycle. And this chart can be applied in two ways. One, to find the folks that you in your company that might be the zoomers, like find those highly creatives that are highly adoptive. But two, it can be used to find a lot of workflows and opportunities in the business. Like, what are the highly creative things where human creativity makes a massive change in your business, where capabilities are limited? And so, Will, you are itching to speak. Jump in. I've been blocking.
Oh, no, I'm super excited with this because I think you are. This is nail on the head with this. Like, it's when you look at that opportunity of creativity versus capacity. You know, if you are incredibly creative, guess what? You probably don't have a lot of capacity because you're already doing 8 million things. So being able to take and marry those two to start moving towards that top right is really where you can identify, if you're an MSP, hey, who could be your internal champions? Like, this really helps you start to identify that. This really starts to help you identify the people that are probably going to need to be coaxed towards being able to use AI. Yeah. And with this, it really just kind of gives you that ability to start to have those conversations with all of those different individuals, because it's a different conversation for each one of those people. For that person who's a bloomer, you're like, hey, I want you to come up and help me come up with some use cases. I want you to start learning more about AI as part of your job function. At that point, you've got your internal champion, you've got your SMEs that you can start leveraging, and you know who they are. So I love this chart.
Yep, absolutely. I know, Will, a question popped up, and while it's not exactly, I think we end cap this combo and we can take the question and talk on real world, but I'd love your take on it, Will. Like, I'll jump in after, but I think I know your answer.
All right. So the question here is, how can AI-driven automation optimize IT operations in an MSP environment without compromising security and compliance? So, I mean, there's a ton of ways to do that. So thank you for asking that question, Sandeep. I mean, just looking at things like, let's say if we're talking about an MSP environment, let's talk about service desk, right? Being able to take and, I think as service technicians, we've all had those tickets that are 50 deep in a conversation that we just got escalated to our team, right? You don't want to sit and spend 30 minutes looking through that ticket and going, all right, what were all these people saying? That's where you can utilize things like AI to summarize that ticket conversation, pull out the important bits and pieces. Even on things like dispatch, you can use AI to help you start to classify what kind of ticket this is, what kind of a request this is, what priority these things need to be based off of the information you've got without compromising security and compliance. It's really about taking a lot of like what you're doing and just trying to streamline it based off of the data you already have. I mean, one of my favorite examples that we have a tool called Connect My Sidekick, which is an AI assistant that does a lot of these things that I just mentioned. Is, I think we've all had, and John, I think you can probably agree with this, everyone knows that one technician that is just phenomenal at their job, right? But when they try to communicate with our customers, it looks like they rolled their face across a keyboard. Everyone has one of those texts. Being able to take and give them a function to go, hey, sanitize this text, or make it less accusatory, or make it nicer. Being able to just do that helps to guide tone, helps to make sure that you're communicating more effectively with your different teams.
Absolutely. And I think,
what about you?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to take it from really like tactics on the security and compliance, right? Like, so. The core of security, the whole thing we're protecting is data, right? Like, every security principle, every framework, CIS, NIST, ISO, whatever you want to take it on, like, it's all about protecting your business data. And your data lives on your asset. This is the normal security speech. But when you think about it, it's going to go back to what you were saying earlier, Will. It's what data are you putting into what tools? Yeah. And what are those tools, policies, right? Are they training with your data? Is it isolated data? How are they hosting their data? It's not much different than a SaaS procurement offering would go in general. It's like, understand their compliance, understand their strategies. And then when it comes to the compliance threshold, that's about maintaining the inventory of assets that have the data of Gen AI. So I look at it just like SaaS. I mean, it's not SaaS, but it's pretty dang close. How would you procure a SaaS tool is the same way you should look at how you're procuring an AI tool.
Yeah.
And I'll go even like a layer deeper. From a compliance perspective, I think one thing that if you haven't thought about it, like a lot of businesses are out of compliance as employees have just started like rushing to AI. So if you don't have visibility into what those assets are and what they're using, this is a great place to start. Like shadow Gen AI is a topic I could go on for hours on, but like it's real. Like when you look at a normal environment, you'll see 3, 5, 10 different SaaS tools that are AI driven, where people are just pouring enterprise data into without thinking about it. And so, I think how can you do automation and optimize IT ops in an environment without compromising security and compliance? Find the vendors you trust, understand their compliance and their usage of your data, understand how it's trending, read their Gen AI policy, ask them about it, read the T's and C's really close, and get into the like, what are they doing with your data? Because there's a lot of clauses out there that can anonymize your data, which is fair, but can they anonymize it and train it in a model? Like you're going to unfortunately have to get into the T's and C's to understand who to partner with in the future. And a lot of the things is it's really hard to keep up with those T's and C's. Vendors are updating them rapidly. So keep up with that. I think that'll be a good transition real quick. I know Henry's got a question, but I think I can weave this all together here.
All right, let's do it.
So let's jump here and then we'll weave it right into Henry's question. I like talking about the real world impact because there's a lot of hypothesizers out there on AI and a lot of like top level conversation on it, but I want to hit tactics. We promised real world use cases. This is how we look at it. I know, nothing other than the logo on the bottom left. Like this is how we look at it in our business. Like get started and be curious, right? Fail. Everybody's got to fail. But this was out of the Kinsey study is if you can find 11 minutes a day for 11 weeks that you can automate, whether that's, a support desk ticket, changing the tone, whether you're using ChatGPT, whether you're using ConnectWise's help sidekick. Is it sidekick? Sorry, I should know that.
Sidekick is our tool. Yeah.
Whether you're using Sidekick to do like tone alteration, whether you're using ChatGPT to do debugging in a ticket, whatever it is, find 11 minutes a day for 11 weeks, and that can be how you progress. And that's how you go from being somebody that's maybe on the left side of that spectrum from earlier to somebody like me and Will, who use it in our daily lives. I don't really even use Google much anymore. I just fundamentally use ChatGPT.
Right. Same.
And then I think this is a real good tactical takeaway. Like, what are things that take you 20 to 30 minutes a week that you have to do that building a prompt that's really functional, like could help you with? And I'll give you examples across the board here. Let's talk about, these are just real world things that we built internally just to show examples. Like, this is a fake email. We don't have a client named Jimmy Baranzo. However, if we did, I would love to meet Jimmy Baranzo. But like, how can I set up ACH? I'm looking to understand this. Like, we just loaded a GPT in with the knowledge, and now accountants can take the email, drop it in a GPT, and they can respond quickly with real answers. And while they know the information, they don't have to spend the time looking it up. So email responses, think about the AR team in your MSP. Like, could this help your clients understand their managed service agreements more when questions come in?
100%. That's a great example. I mean, think about this is, kind of goes back to Henry's question as well. When you're talking about client interactions, just think about how much time in your day-to-day life you spend looking for simple information, whether it's information you haven't used in 6 months, whether it's information that you use daily and you're like, where the heck did I store this file? Stuff like that. Like that is one of the lowest hanging fruits that you can utilize AI for. And like your email responder here is a great example of that, and just surfacing data that already exists in a way that's more consumable. I mean, you think about that as far as 1 year versus 5 years. We're looking at 5 years, Henry, there's no telling where we're going to be in 5 years. I mean, a lot of that might just become core functionality of every single offering out there is, hey, here's the data that you need to know to be able to use the thing. Like, I think we're going to start to see more, as you mentioned, more specialized business outcomes focused on, MSPs who are leveraging AI. I think AI is going to become in 5 years probably just it's table stakes. I mean, it already kind of is table stakes when you think about it. But I think we're going to see more and more specialization in that, as far as being able to automate more and drive better efficiency. Those are really the biggest areas where I see AI starting to take off.
Well, and I think to Henry's point, right? Like, what is it going to look like in a year from now? I think a lot of frontline tier one auto responses are going to at least include some level of troubleshooting steps.
Absolutely.
You want to just go from the lowest hanging fruit, like do that first tier one. Mm-hmm. Have you rebooted it yet? Can you take a picture? Can you send me these details? Like that stuff that you do in every help desk ticket, at least doing that. In 5 years, we had this debate internally again, like, are we going to push back from interacting with agents? I know I already spam the 0 button when I call any operator line. I hate talking to them. And when I get AI bots in chat, I push back and I usually say human, human, human over and over and over. I don't know if we're going to ever move to a world in which like the full workflows are automated. I think in an ideal world, we'd all love that to be there. Yeah. But we have to remember those intangibles. I mean, I said earlier, AI doesn't have creativity. It also doesn't have a soul. Like I want to talk to a person, and as service professionals, when I work with my service professionals, whether it's an MSP or an accountant or a bank or whatever in the services, it's a service industry. I want to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's going to help augment more than replace, especially that might be counterintuitive to what a lot of people might argue against it. But I think that's going to be really the case there.
Yeah.
And so that's why I give this example as an easy one. Like nobody from our accounting team just like gets an email and automatically drops over this like thing. And we don't have an autoresponder. Like we still interact with our folks. And so it's just about helping them be quicker in the jobs. And I think that's where you're looking at like internal operations. If I'm an MSP, I'm really focusing on my internal ops and not my external ops. I'm really keeping that personal relationship, and I'm not focusing on automating that human relationship because that's just not going to be automatable. I mean,
correct.
Yeah, right? Like who knows? I don't know. We didn't think we were going to be sitting here from a global pandemic working from everywhere either 5-10 years ago either. So nothing's off the table.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree.
I'll give one last example, and then we're going to jump into that GTIA state of the channel.
Love it. Let's do it.
Give us a myriad of opportunities and real use cases. But this one, I hope Cece from our team's listening to the call. She probably is. She's on LinkedIn. That's our social media person. And she had just joined our company. And I felt bad almost initially because I go, hey, we're doing this webinar, with ConnectWise. Can you promote it out on social for us? It's going out in a few weeks. And this was when we were doing the Valentine's Day one, Will. And she goes, yeah, that's great. Here's a form. Can you submit the social media input? And I'm like, I guess I can. I live on social media, but like, I guess. So what we did is I was like, this is a really long document. Like I am very overwhelmed with this document right here.
Wow. Yeah.
But you know what this looks a lot like is a scope of work internally at an MSP or a triage help desk, like triage pathway or an onboard document, or this looks a lot like things you see in your business.
Yeah, 100%.
Probably in a documentation knowledge base. But what we were able to do is create a GPT that's read the template, then allowed us to drop context in, and it would fill out the template for us. So this is a really good use case too. And what it actually did is we trained the GPT not only to fill out the template, but to tell us, open the Jira ticket, here's your assignee, here's the type of ticket, here's the summary, and here's the description. And while I probably could have filled this template out in 20 minutes, I was also able to just build the GPT in about 15. And now every time somebody wants to get something promoted on social, she sends them the GPT, they engage with the GPT, curate their content, and then they're able to open a ticket.
Love that. That is awesome, man. That's a huge time saver. So again, these are practical examples of where you can start to leverage AI in your business. Like it's not like you have to sit there and custom build everything. I mean, you can start with something as quick and easy as a SharePoint bot, which takes 3 seconds, 3 clicks to make. I mean, I can't tell you the number of SharePoint bots I've made in the last 2 weeks, but it's literally 3 clicks.
Well, and I think that's the thing is like, whether you're on the left side of the spectrum or not, probably not if you're listening to this webinar, but if you're on the right side, which is probably the main audience here, help people. I think if you take I think we've got at least a few takeaways. We committed to a handful, but
yeah,
this one for sure, like take the people under the wing, take the people that you don't think are using it, and just build something for them. And it just unlocks this aha moment for them. And it takes it away from like, oh, I'm terrified this thing's going to, take my job, to, oh my gosh, I can use this to do my job better.
right.
And that's such an unlock moment here. Another use case, I mean, we could rattle use cases up, and I will real quick. I don't have slides for them, but like a few use cases we've used internally in custom GPTs. We just got done working with, hiring a bunch of new business development reps whose job is to call out.
Yeah.
We trained it on our product knowledge, and we created a call script simulator to where like you could click, give me an easy call, give me an impossible call. The impossible call, by the way, cracked me up. It's like, you're talking to John at Secure Shield, who has had a 10-year strict no vendor policy.
Wow.
Yeah, I fought with John on the other line. I tried to convince him that they should buy our product, and we stood no chance. But a call simulator, like take your MSP's offerings, like drop a lot of the vendor documentation of all the vendors you have, and then have a call simulator where somebody calls in for a problem and you recommend a offering based off of the knowledge from your tool base. Like you can have
love that.
Yeah, have your the account execs and your TAMs and your VCIOs just build up muscle while they're sitting there with a few extra hours. That was a really powerful use case. The accounting responder was a user. I'm just thinking about like the last week is what I'm really thinking through here. Let's see. The last one is, there's simple ones like data transformation. Those are really easy. We did another one with just like account summary where we transcribed all the calls and did an account summary and health status. Lead quality is a super big one that you can dig into.
Yeah.
And so there's just infinite use cases. My use cases are for SaaS. Let's show up here. Let's talk about what's for channel and for MSP.
Absolutely.
I hate that this is, I'm going to make sure can I link this to you here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can we get Jessica to share that one out? Let's talk through it and then we'll share it out after. Thanks, Jess. But company motivations and adoptions of AI in the channel. So this is the state of the channel from GTIA. What are they seeing it as? So this is the data right now, MSP. So if you're on here and you go, oh my gosh, I haven't rolled out AI in my business. Oh my gosh, I haven't rolled it out for my customers. Like you are not on your own.
No.
46% of MSPs say that they're using it for internal and customer sales in some examples. So if you haven't used it for both, you're still on the other half. Like you are not completely behind. 27% say they use it internal. So that means if you are internally using it today, you're part of the 73%. Like you're okay. I find this interesting, like the MSPs that only use it for customer sales and have not used it in their business. I'm fishy on that one too. But I don't know. This is the data. It's thousands. Yeah. I'm guessing what that probably, it's state of the channel. So it's probably more like VARs and probably more like, product resellers. But again, even if you I haven't ever touched it, there's still 17%. 1/5 of the industry hasn't even touched it. So you're not the second best time to plant trees today. So use that data point, move from 17% to 16.9%, like move the needle a little forward. And so I'll scroll down here because I think there's some, I could have made these slides. I'm sorry, but here you go, Jessica. We also have a question, but here's the document for the GTI state of the channel. Let's talk about these use cases because we've commented on use cases, and these are how businesses like you are using it. Yeah. So this is probably the most tangible thing we can look at to automate functions. We've really beaten that one down well. Any use cases you want to share on automations internally that you've rolled out? Just curious.
I mean, really, it's again finding documentation. Using it. I like content generation in sales and marketing, being that those are kind of two of my areas. Being able to use AI to find snippets, being able to use it to, just take a transcript from a live stream like this and turn it into a blog. Even being able to have it, assist with things like creating marketing materials and being able to take some, just basic information about one of your offerings and have it create those marketing tools, that there are a lot of tools out there that help with stuff like that. Super cool stuff. That's really, again, it's taking some of that low hanging fruit that just takes you a ton of time, and getting it off of your plate, taking it and making it easier. So you're, when you're talking content, if I'm taking, this transcript, turning it into a blog, I have a content manager who can go in and, take this and then use it to build framework around that. And then you still got someone who has to look over it, make sure everything's good, maybe add some additional context, add content, but it gives them something that's not a blank page to start with. And that's really, when you think about getting rid of blank page syndrome, like that is a huge, huge impactful area.
Absolutely. I mean, I use it daily as I'm trying to get started. One of my favorite, just implementing this tactical, I'm like, I'm about to do X, what are the steps I should do or something like that. Just to get started on any project is almost where I go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, these are channel firms like you. So 41% of them out there are using it to automate functions, 35% content generation, 34% sales and marketing. So right here, if you haven't thought about where to use AI, like look at your sales and marketing org. How are you interacting with your clients and how are you increasing those interactions and quality of those interactions? 33 data services and offerings. Well, we talked about this. It might be minced. It's kicked into the ground, like data service, data. I think I've said it 10 times. Maybe if I say it 2 more times, Matt Lee will show up. Data. No, he hasn't showed up. That's all right. I try to summon him, but if you look at it and you go, okay, protect the data, like you don't even have to offer delivery services of AI. AI readiness is data readiness and knowing your data and knowing your GRC around data. Talked about sales, but cybersecurity, there's a question in chat around this.
Let's look at the chat questions.
I'll ask it and I'm curious. I wish I knew the portfolio better. Well, maybe there's something in the portfolio you can recommend, but I'll give some tips regardless of product portfolio. Sandeep asked, could you please show some light on how AI can enhance real-time threat detection and response in MSPs, security operations centers, or a SOC? So maybe a brief. Sounds like somebody from our team's going to answer.
Yeah.
But let me give you an example if you don't even buy a tool, right? Like just to get started, say your SOC receives an input and receives an alert. At a baseline, you could use open source AI tools. I highly would recommend get an enterprise version, protect your data, all these things. But use a tool to do research on the threat. Like go use the deep research features in Gemini or ChatGPT to deep research it as troubleshooting steps. Go use ChatGPT to say, hey, is there any news reports on this threat that we should be looking at? Like just use it to do general data discovery instead of Google. Like that's just like a real low hanging fruit opportunity because usually it can search much quicker. But what are your thoughts, Will? Anything to add there? I know somebody from your team's hitting comment.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways. Cybersecurity is not my specialty. That's why we have smart people like John Helms, who I saw in the chat earlier. Yeah. Honestly, endless possibilities. I know AI is really good at looking at pattern recognition. Yeah. So being able to utilize it for pattern recognition on, things like threat attacks is always a possibility. I mean, that's just one way that I'm thinking.
All right. And there's a wonderful question in here, Henry. He's trying to summon Matt Lee as well. What is an asset? Maybe he's going to show up in chat. What is an asset? If you say it 3 times in a beer, he shows up. But what is asset? I'm going to answer it because you asked the question, Henry. I know you know the answer to the question. But an asset is anything in your environment that can hold data. And I like that vague nebulous response because most people say, it's part of your network infrastructure, it's part of your server, it's all these different things. They start labeling off the types of assets, but the type of asset changes in real time. Like we were talking even internally again here, Robert, like assets would also be part of your agentic AI tools now.
Yeah.
That's an asset that you need to start monitoring. And how are you going to manage your assets of agent AIs? It's not going to be on the CIS framework to say, have an inventory of all of your AI agents. But if you follow the rule of like, where is your data in your business? And you follow that rule all the way down to like the brass tacks of actually applying it. Keith Nelson, you are an asset.
Keith, you are an asset. You will always be an asset, my friend.
You have data about the business. So you're an asset, like as qualified. Legends on the Line, smart like John. No, smart like Will.
Definitely smart like John.
but look, I think I'll show these last points. We're wrapping up. We got 5 minutes. We've moved into the point of the conversation that we're getting some troll. I love it, by the way. Some troll questions like what's an asset, but this is some great data here. If you walk away, like channels by size, if you're a micro MSP or small MSP, this is really good content. Like, it's put in chat. Will Dowling is an asset. That just showed up. Thank you for putting that in there, John Helps. Can we pop that one up so we all get a little bit it's not Valentine's Day anymore when we last did this, but Will Dowling, you are an asset.
I don't know. John Helms is also an asset.
This is heading south quick, isn't it? So I don't know. I'm not going to belabor it. There's an enormous amount of data in here. You can go pull all the information you need. There's one last data point. There we go. I finally found it here. Top revenue growth in the next 2 years in the channel. 53% of people. I'm calling it the 4 horses of revenue right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Stealing it.
AI, cloud, cyber. And it's actually like, I don't know why digital marketing's in there. This isn't the report that I pulled earlier, but AI, cloud, cyber, and data. And so there's another point I was looking for. Digital marketing is a very surprising one to see here, Will.
Is that the black horse?
That was unexpected.
Kind of like a black sheep, but it's a black horse since we're talking horses.
Different data point than I expected. But I would say that AI, data, cyber, cloud, if you're looking on where you're going to grow your MSP, those are the 4 core areas. And apparently digital marketing, that one's growing. I do remember this data point. Carolyn talked about it. MSPs are partnering with digital marketing professionals to offer digital marketing services. But if we go back to topic, 51% expect a significant increase. If you walk away with anything, we had lots of tips along the way. ChatGPT did not create a song for us to sing out on the way, by the way. I asked it, and it got one, but I don't want to embarrass us.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, and that's really when you're thinking about it. Hopefully you've gotten some really good actionable items today. Like that's the goal of this, is to give you guys things to be really, be able to take back to your business and go, hey, how do we want to start looking at some of this? That report from GTI is amazing. It's got a ton of great information and an entire section devoted to AI. So like I sat there and read it and I had a light bulb moment as I was sitting there reading it. And that's part of how this conversation happened. But it's one of those things where if you've learned something today, we're really thankful for that. So John, anything you want to add in closing before I close this out, brother?
My only thing I would add is just because I started dabbling around with AI aggressively back in September. It's March. So I've been 6 months. So if I'm supposed to be the SME up here, I've really only started dabbling 6 months ago. And I only say that to bring out the obvious point. The second best time to plant a tree is today. I have spent a lot of time studying it, but the reality is it's also just not that overwhelming. You've got to just get it out of your head that this is some hyper technical, hyper specialized. I remember the same, I had that same gut feeling when everything started moving to cloud. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to learn cloud infrastructure. I'm going to have to learn what AWS's version of a firewall is and AWS version of a VLAN. And I just remember feeling like this was this overwhelming task that I would never achieve. And that's kind of how I think some people feel like AI is. Yeah. But we've shown resiliency in the industry over and over and over again. AI is just another curve. It's not going to change the world as demonstrably overnight as some people have this fear. It will change the world. But it's not one of those things that you should lose sleep at night, but it is one of those things you really should start investing in today.
Absolutely.
And there's just so much low-hanging fruit. Read that GTIA State of the Channel. Rewatch this video. We hit a few of them. Thanks for having me here, Will. I'm excited to be part of it.
Glad you could join us, Damien. This has been an awesome episode of Practical AI for MSPs. So we're out of time today. Hope everybody will join us next time. And remember, if I can build an agent in SharePoint, Copilot Studio, etc., so can you. Have a great one, everybody. See you next time.